If you've been searching why people quit myEcon, why people leave myEcon too early, why some people fail in myEcon, why people give up on myEcon, or why myEcon doesn't work for some people, I'm making this video for you because a lot of people do not quit myEcon because they carefully studied it, worked it properly, used it fully, gave it real time, and then reached a smart conclusion. A lot of people quit much, much earlier than that. They quit while they're still confused. They quit while they're still emotional, while they're still impatient. They quit while they're still expecting something that was never realistic to begin with. And then later, they talk like they gave it a fair shot. And a lot of the time, they didn't, right? That's what this video is going to be about, because one of the most expensive habits people have in life is quitting things too early and then pretending the problem was the thing instead of the timing, the mindset, or the way they approached it. That happens with jobs, it happens with money, it happens with habits, business, and yes, it happens with myEcon too. So let me get straight into this. The first reason that people quit myEcon too early is they confuse discomfort with evidence that something is wrong. This is probably the biggest reason. That's why I put it first, right? The second things stop feeling easy, clean, or exciting, or instantly rewarding, a lot of people start thinking, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this doesn't work. Maybe I should move on. Maybe I made a mistake. That is not always discernment. Sometimes that's just discomfort. And discomfort shows up fast when people have to slow down, learn something new, face their financial reality, deal with uncertainty, ask questions, admit confusion, or stop fantasizing and start thinking like an adult. That stuff makes people feel uncomfortable. But discomfort is not proof that something is bad. A lot of the time, it's just proof that something stopped feeding your fantasy and started challenging your habits. And that matters because if a person bails the second reality replaces excitement, you're never going to stay with anything long enough to benefit from it. You just keep chasing beginnings. So the next reason that I think people quit myEcon too early is they had a movie in their head and real life didn't match it. And this is a big one because a lot of people never come into myEcon with a clean, grounded expectation. They come in with a secret movie playing in their mind. In that movie, everything clicks fast. Money, stress starts lifting fast. Understanding comes easy. Confidence shows up early and progress feels obvious. That movie is powerful, but it's fake. Let's be honest, it's fake. That movie is fake because when real experience feels slow, more layered and more personal, or more demanding than the movie in people's heads, they get disappointed. Not because nothing useful is there, because reality failed to match the fantasy they never admitted they were carrying. That's one of the biggest reasons people leave too soon. They're not reacting to what is happening. They're reacting to the gap between what is happening and what they secretly thought should be happening. That's a very different problem. Now, the third reason that people quit myEcon too early is they want emotional momentum, not actual progress. This is a different issue than laziness. Some people do move, but what they're addicted to is not growth. It's emotional momentum. They want to feel excited, powerful, certain. They want to feel like something big is about to happen. And if that feeling dips, they start panicking. That's not a strong foundation because real progress is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like better understanding, asking better questions. Sometimes it looks like catching old financial patterns or slowing down long enough to stop making dumb decisions. Those are real wins, but emotionally addicted people don't respect quiet wins. If it doesn't feel dramatic, they think it doesn't count. That's how they talk themselves out of progress that was never actually starting. Then the fourth reason that I think people quit myEcon too early is they don't realize that early confusion is normal. A lot of people think that if something is real, they should instantly understand everything about it. That's just childish. A lot of worthwhile things make more sense after some honest engagement. Not because they're fake, but because you're new. And people hate feeling new. They hate feeling uncertain. They hate feeling like they don't fully get it yet. They hate having to ask questions or feel behind. They hate not looking sharp at something right away. So instead of staying in the learning phase long enough to become clearer, they retreat. They tell themselves, this must not be for me. And sometimes that's true. But a lot of the time, what that really means is I don't like the feeling of not being instantly good, instantly clear, or instantly confident. That's a completely different issue. So I want to ask you something here, because I think this is where a lot of people are going to get exposed if they're honest. Do you think most people quit things because the thing truly failed them, or because the process stopped feeding their expectations fast enough? Drop your answer to that in the comments, right? Because I think a lot of people say they want results, but what they actually want is for the experience to keep matching the story they told themselves in the beginning. And the second that stops, so do they, right? So the fifth reason that people quit myEcon too early is they mistake a slow start for a dead end. This is one of the biggest mental errors that people make in life. Not every slow start means something is broken. Sometimes a slow start just means you're at the beginning. That should be obvious, but to impatient people, it isn't. They think no big result yet, bad sign. No huge shift yet, bad sign. I'm in my first 2 months and I haven't had an obvious breakthrough yet, bad sign. Come on. But because people think that way, they keep quitting things in the stage where patience is required. That pattern destroys people, because if you constantly leave during the slow phase, you never live long enough to see what stronger understanding, sharper positioning, or real consistency could have created. Look at me. I'm a prime example of that. I sat right where you were sitting. And now look where I'm at. This is all I do, right? But if you do that, you keep interrupting your own growth, and then you blame the thing. That's one of the saddest cycles that people get stuck in. Then another reason that people quit myEcon too early is they would rather protect their ego than stay in the process. And this is a deep one, all right? When somebody joins something and it does not immediately make them feel smart, powerful, or ahead, their ego starts getting irritated. Now they have to admit they are learning. Now they have to admit that they don't fully know what they're doing yet. Now they have to admit they may need help. They may need to admit that change is not automatic. A lot of people hate that because ego wants to feel superior fast. Growth doesn't usually work that way. So what do people do? They leave. They quit. Why? Because leaving lets them protect the story that the problem was outside of themselves. If they stay, they may have to face themselves. If they leave, they can keep pretending they were too smart for something. They were too good for something, too advanced for it, or that it simply wasn't it. That protects people, right? That protects people's pride, but usually it kills progress. The seventh reason people quit myEcon too early is they compare their beginning to somebody else's middle. Comparison kills progress. I've said this over and over again. This destroys people in every area of life. They see somebody that's more confident, more clear, somebody who seems to understand things better, somebody who sounds stronger, somebody who looks like they are further ahead. And instead of thinking, okay, they've been at this longer, they think something must be wrong with me. Maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe I should just stop. That comparison is poison, because now the person is not evaluating their own path honestly. They're measuring their first steps against somebody else's developed voice, developed clarity, or developed experience. That's not fair, and it's not intelligent, right? But people do it constantly, and then they quit. Not because they gave themselves no chance, but because they gave themselves no grace. The eighth reason that people quit myEcon too early is they don't separate frustration from final truth. This is a mature point, and not enough people understand it. A bad day is not a final answer. A confusing week is not a final answer. Feeling irritated, feeling unsure, or stretched is not a final answer. But a lot of people treat temporary frustration like a permanent conclusion. That's just reckless, because when somebody turns a passing emotional state into a final judgment, they make unstable decisions. And unstable decisions lead to unstable outcomes. A lot of people who quit myEcon too early are not acting from clarity. They're acting from a mood. That's a dangerous way to make choices. Then another reason, the ninth reason that people quit myEcon too early, is they came in wanting proof, but refused participation. This is a hard truth, and it happens a lot. Some people want evidence that something can help them, but they don't want to do the things that would let them experience that evidence for themselves. They want certainty from a distance. That's not how life works. A lot of value only becomes obvious through honest participation, not blind participation. Honest participation. You engage, you observe, apply, think, adjust, see. That is how adults evaluate things. But people who stay passive while demanding total proof usually end up with the weakest conclusions because they never gave themselves enough contact with the process to know what they're even judging. And the last reason I'm going to say that people quit myEcon too early is they have a history of leaving anything too soon, and they repeat the pattern. That's just it. They're repeating the pattern of leaving. And this is probably the most important point. So I'm going to end the video on this one, right? A lot of people don't just quit myEcon too early. They quit everything too early. They quit habits too early. They quit routines too early. They quit projects too early. Plans, going to the gym, budgeting. They quit learning too early. Any opportunity that they're involved in, they quit too early. So when they quit myEcon too early, it's not some shocking isolated event. It's a pattern. And until people face that pattern, it's going to keep wrecking everything they touch. That's why this matters. Because sometimes the issue is not, did myEcon fail me? Sometimes the more honest question is, am I the kind of person who keeps leaving the room before anything has time to develop? That's a painful question, but it's also a freeing one. Because if the pattern is in the person, then the person can change. That's good news. All right, so let me bring this all together. Why do people quit myEcon too early? Because they mistake discomfort for proof something is wrong. Because reality did not match the fantasy they were carrying. Because they want emotional momentum more than real progress. Because they don't tolerate early confusion well. Because they mistake slow beginnings for dead ends. Because they would rather protect their ego than stay in the process. Because comparison poisons their self-trust. Because they turn temporary frustration into permanent judgment. Because they want proof without participation. And because quitting too early is already a habit in their life. That's the real answer, not the shallow one, but the real deep one. And once people understand this, they can stop pretending every early exit was some wise decision. Some early exits are wisdom. A lot of them are just impatience wearing a smart sounding mask. That's the truth. So if you're somebody looking at myEcon or somebody who has ever walked away from something too fast, ask yourself harder questions. Am I reacting to what is actually happening, or am I reacting to the fact that this is not feeding my fantasy fast enough? Am I making a smart decision, or am I protecting my ego, my mood, or my impatience? That is where the real conversation starts. So if this video helped you at all, hit that subscribe button. Because in this playlist, I'm breaking down myEcon in a real world, no BS way. And remember, answer this in the comments for me. Do most people quit things because the thing truly failed them, or because the process stopped matching their expectations fast enough? That is a conversation worth having. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.